into the sport. Christian McCaffrey is at number 2 on the list. Led the league in scrimmage yards last season as the most by any player since his rookie year. And speaking of scrimmage yards, number 1 is Saquon Barkley, top of the class. He has the most scrimmage yards in his first 2 years by any player in the long and storied history of the New York Football Giants. So those are the top 5. Here's the rest of your top 10. Dalvin Cook, you see at 6. Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, and there's Le'Veon Bell, who is entering his second season with the New York Jets. So let's get into this here. Neek and Rob and Jeremy with me. And again, Jeremy, you compiled this list. This is not an ESPN list. This is you interviewing 50 people from inside the National Football League. What would you say was the biggest point of contention on the list amongst the running backs?
Well, Greeny was the top 3, and Saquon being number 1, which was a surprise to me. I thought it would be McCaffrey, but it turns out teams just scared, they're more fearful of this guy more than anybody else. He's got the speed, the power, the contact balance. This is a guy that opposing offensive coaches would stop studying their Microsoft tablet just to go watch this guy on the other side. Veteran linebackers told me you have to put 4 players on him at one time because he can break 80 yards at any moment. And so he got the edge over McCaffrey because for as great as he is, they say McCaffrey isn't as maybe sturdy or powerful, where Saquon has a little bit of everything. And then Ezekiel Elliott got a lot of first-place votes, but not quite enough because only 4 rushes of 20-plus yards last year on 301 attempts. So several coaches I talked to wondered if he's lost a little bit of explosion coming off that long holdout in Cabo last year.
Okay, that's interesting. A lot to unpack there. Nikovich, let me come to you because you're a linebacker. Which of these guys scares you the most? Of all the running backs in the NFL right now, which guy causes you to lose the most sleep during the week leading up to the game?
Well, I can tell you as a linebacker that a strong running back can break the will of a defense very easily. So I agree with number 1. I disagree with number 3. I think that Derrick Henry should be up in the number 3 spot because of that. He's big, physical, powerful, and not only can he break it, he can outrun everybody on the football field. So he's a big physical running back that is faster than everyone on the football field. So I feel that the number 3 spot should be Derrick Henry, and we should bump down Zeke to possibly number 5 because of the fact that when he has those breakaway runs, that he's getting caught. And also, when you think about it, if you put Derrick Henry in the Cowboys uniform with that offensive line and the way that they run the ball with that offensive line, I think that he'd have a lot of success there as well. Now,
Ezekiel Elliott came into the sport as a huge star coming out of Ohio State, obviously goes to the super high spotlight of the Dallas Cowboys. And you're right. They're a run-first team that featured that behind a really good offensive line. Dominique, does Zeke look to you like he has lost a step?
I mean, it's hard to say that he's lost a step. The numbers don't seem to lie. He was still top of the league running back as far as yards are concerned, which means he had a pretty effective success rate, which is nice. If you're building an offense, I think I'd almost rather have a guy who's going to be sure to get me 5, 6, 7 yards, sometimes 10, than have a guy who goes 1, 2, 3, 20. And that's a different situation. So you do want those big plays every now and then, but having an offense where you can rely on a player to give you consistent gains, because I think that's one of the things that Zeke does that's special, is you often find him falling forward and finding ways to eke out a couple extra yards where there might only be 2 or 3 to gain. He'll get you 4 or 5.
All right, I want to pause this thought for just a moment, because the idea of running backs in general, I sometimes jokingly say, mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be running backs, because candidly, that's not a position. The degree to which it has been devalued in the NFL sometimes is frustrating to watch as a fan. We have spent this entire week talking about the $450 million contract extension that Patrick Mahomes agreed to. And while the quarterback market is more lucrative than it has ever been before, the same can most certainly not be said of their teammates that they're handing the ball to.
There is a very dark cloud over running backs.
Difficult for some of these guys to get the contracts of their dreams at that running back position.
Why is it that the running back have to be the redheaded stepchild?
Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be running backs, because their lot in football life is generally to get used up while they are at their least expensive and then discarded and displaced by a cheaper model. The numbers are remarkable. 10 of the top 11 rushers last year were on their rookie deals. Each of the last 4 rushing champions was 25 or younger. The leading rushers on last year's Super Bowl teams were Damian Williams, who ranked 25th on the Chiefs in terms of salary cap, and Raheem Mostert, who was 26th on the Niners. Meanwhile, in the last 8 years, only 10 running backs have been drafted in the first round, as compared to 31 wide receivers. And teams actually devoted less total salary cap dollars to running backs last year than they did 10 years ago, even though the actual cap has risen by more than 50%. The best illustration of this took place in Tennessee, where Derrick Henry almost single-handedly carried the Titans to the AFC Championship game with 409 touches on the season.
Henry down the sideline, end zone, touchdown, Titans!
So what did his team do? Slapped the franchise tag on him and gave a long-term deal to the quarterback. The exceptions right now are Zeke Elliott and Christian McCaffrey. Will their teams regret doing their huge deals? And how about the Giants and Saquon Barkley? How they handle that situation figures to shape the future of the franchise. Dominique, as a former president of the NFL Players Association, I come to you first on this question. I mean, do running backs just have it unfair? To me, I've said a million times here, the Cowboys made a mistake with Zeke based upon the way the situation is structured. There's no reason they needed to do what they did with him, and I believe that they will regret it if they don't already. What do you think of the way the thing is broken for running backs?
Yeah, it's absolutely not fair considering how they get used up and discarded like you outlined in that piece. I think the situation that they're faced with is one that you can't get around, because the truth of the matter is a replacement level running back is often gives you a similar level production as the guys that we think of as stars. But when you have unique special players, I'm not one that believes that you never pay running backs. I think that that's not a hard and fast rule that you can absolutely live by at all times. I think to be safe, you're probably better off not paying running backs. But when there's somebody special and your entire offense is built around them, that's rare. And that top five that we looked at, I'd say that Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey are maybe the only examples where the entire offense is predicated on having this unique special player. Those guys, I kind of feel like you have to pay them.
You have to pay them. But the problem in the NFL, and we keep saying this over and over again this week, is that in the NFL, you get paid for what you're going to do, not what you've done. And what the running backs generally are going to do is never as good as what they've done, because the hits start to add up. And by the time they're 27, 28, Rob Ninkovich, do you feel like, is that a tipping point where all of a sudden the production starts to drop off and you say to yourself, you know what, I could have spent a lot less money and drafted a guy in the second round?
Yeah, we're seeing that around the league. Teams are understanding I can go draft a guy in the first round and control him for 6 to 7 years, basically, and not have to extend him to a big contract. So if you're a running back, you don't want to be drafted in the first round. You want to go in the second or the third round because you know you can get to free agency quicker. So you look around the league, teams understand how vital it is to protect your investments. And look, I didn't see any new rule changes on don't drop weight on any running backs, right? They're protecting the quarterbacks, so they want the quarterbacks to be healthy. They're protecting the quarterbacks. That's the biggest value on the team right now, or biggest investment on the team, so they're protecting the quarterbacks. Everybody else, they really don't care about that. So in the running back position, it's just let's get as many guys in here as possible as we can get, keep the production high, and let's not pay anybody, and that seems to be the case around the NFL.
Jeremy, what kinds of conversations did you hear from executives about that?
Well, Greeny, to highlight the realities that you laid out, I've talked to several prominent NFL agents that said they have stopped recruiting running backs altogether coming out of college, because this is the way things are trending right now, where there's about a 5-year shelf life that NFL teams look at with running backs. You look at that list we highlighted, the top 10, only Le'Veon Bell is older than 26 years old. And so you have to do deals now. There are 4 players on this list trying to get a contract right now, including Dalvin Cook. I'm told the Vikings and Cook have made some progress. We're hoping to get something done before training camp. So some of these guys I do believe will get paid here soon, but the problem is Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, those are outliers right now. You're not going to get $16 million in that deal of your dreams.